The broadcast. The bridge of the Resolute smelled of scorched metal and recycled air. Sparks flickered from a ruptured console, casting ghostly shadows over exhausted officers hunched at their stations. Beyond the reinforced viewports, the void shimmered with distant stars, and the cold, glinting spears of an alien armada tightening its encirclement. Admiral Mara Veyra stood at the center of it all, boots planted wide, arms folded behind her back. Her uniform was torn at the sleeve, a thin line of blood drying on her temple. She refused to sit. Leaders did not sit when death hovered so close. "Admiral," whispered Lieutenant Brandt from the sensor station, "their ships outnumber us 12-1. They've stopped firing." His voice trembled as though afraid to break whatever fragile pause had settled over the battlefield. Mara's dark eyes narrowed. Stopping fire meant one of two things, either mercy or mockery. She doubted the Dominion offered the former. A sudden hiss of static filled the bridge. Holographic projectors whirred to life, bathing the room in a cold green glow. A towering figure resolved in the air, 6 eyes burning like molten coals, armored plates etched with alien runes, a crimson cape draped over broad, clawed shoulders. His voice was silk-wrapped in steel. "Humans." The words slithered through the air, heavy with disdain. "I am General Korvath of the Dominion. You are surrounded. Your ships are broken. Your colonies are ash. Surrender now, and your lives may yet serve the Empire." No one moved. The crew exchanged wary glances. Some, younger officers with pale faces and clenched fists, stared at the deck as if expecting orders to lay down arms. Others, veterans of earlier battles, scowled with quiet fury. Korvath's lipless mouth curled into something resembling a smile. "Humans will kneel." The words echoed in the chamber like a death sentence. One of the comms officers flinched. Another muttered under his breath, maybe it's time." Mara turned her head slightly. Her voice was calm, but carried like a blade through the whispering bridge. "Time for what, ensign?" He swallowed hard. "Time to think of the civilians aboard the supply ships. Time to stop fighting. If we don't kneel, they'll slaughter everyone." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the distant rumble of the ship's wounded engines seemed to fade. Mara let the words hang, felt the weight of them pressing against her chest. She had thought them herself once, in darker hours. But then she remembered Earth, burning on the day she escaped orbit. She remembered the screaming transmissions from Mars, cut off mid-sentence as the Dominion fleets descended. She remembered the look on her brother's face when his fighter vanished into a wall of plasma fire. No, humanity would not kneel. She stepped forward into the light of the projection, until Korvath's massive image loomed over her. Her hands clasped behind her back, shoulders squared, chin high. When she spoke, her voice was iron. "You want humanity to kneel?" The bridge crew looked up, startled by the ice in her tone. Mara tilted her head ever so slightly, as if considering his offer. Her next words were deliberate, each one landing like the click of a weapon being armed. "Bow first." Gasps rippled across the bridge. A few officers stiffened, incredulous. The ensign who had spoken earlier gaped at her, wide-eyed. But in the eyes of the veterans, something flared: pride, defiance, hope. For a heartbeat, the alien general simply stared. Then his 6 eyes narrowed, and his voice rose, trembling with fury. "You will regret those words, human." The projection cut with a crackle, leaving the bridge dim once more. For an instant, the crew remained frozen, unsure whether to cheer or despair. The klaxons broke the spell. Red lights strobed through the bridge as sensors wailed in alarm. Multiple signatures charging weapons. Brandt shouted, "They're moving in." Mara turned slowly toward the tactical stations, her expression unreadable but her voice steady as stone. "Battle stations," she ordered. "All hands prepare to repel." Today, she let her gaze sweep over every frightened face on the bridge. No one kneels. Engines roared to life. Bulkheads sealed. Officers scrambled to their stations. Through the viewport, the Dominion fleet began to shift, blades of light gathering at their prows. Mara gripped the railing, heart pounding but resolve unshaken. Korvath thought humanity would kneel. He was about to learn how wrong he was. The first strike. The Dominion fleet moved like a tightening noose, their cruisers sweeping in with the cold precision of predators closing on wounded prey. On the Resolute's bridge, the deck vibrated beneath the steady thrum of engines pushed to their limits. Red warning glyphs crawled across every display. "Admiral," Commander Rios said, leaning over the star chart, "we can't outgun them." "Not like this." Mara Veyra didn't look up from the shifting hologram of enemy movements. Her hands were steady as she dragged symbols across the map, tracing arcs through the void. "We're not going to outgun them. We're going to outthink them." A junior officer, Ensign Lyra, clutched her headset with trembling fingers. Dominion forces closing to weapons range. 40 seconds. Rio stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Mara, we can still broadcast surrender. Buy time. Spare lives." She shot him a sharp look, just enough to stop him mid-sentence. "They would take our time, then our people, then our history." "No, Rios. We hold." The hologram rotated, revealing their position relative to the nearby dying star, its corona a turbulent sea of plasma storms. Radiation made long-range scans unreliable. Mara tapped a section of the corona with a finger. "Here," she said. Lyra frowned. "Admiral, the star's gravity well is unstable," Mara finished for her, "which makes it unpredictable, which makes it our best chance." Rios blinked. "You want to draw them into the corona? We be flying blind." "So will they," Mara replied. A grim smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. "But we've been blind before and lived. Let's see how the Dominion handles it." Orders rippled through the fleet. Frigates and supply ships pivoted, engines flaring as they fell into a ragged retreat. To the Dominion, it would look like desperation. To Mara, it was bait. "Signal the drones," she commanded. Dozens of stealth platforms, previously dormant, awoke from silent orbits around the star. Their camouflage dropped as they powered up, weapons primed. Some carried EMP devices, others tethered salvage cannons to hurl debris like shrapnel. All waited in ambush. On the bridge, the tension was a living thing. Lyra whispered, "They're following us. Cruisers 1 through 8. No 10. They've committed almost their entire vanguard." Mara felt her pulse quicken. "Hold course. Steady." The Resolute shuddered as enemy fire lanced past, tearing holes in the void. A distant explosion bloomed as one of the smaller frigates was clipped by a plasma round, its crew's final transmissions cut short. Mara's jaw tightened. "We keep moving," she said through gritted teeth. Minutes stretched into lifetimes as the fleet plunged deeper into the corona. The viewport filled with churning plasma storms, tendrils of fire curling through space. Sensor readouts became garbled static. The Dominion cruisers pushed on, confident in their numbers. "EMP drones ready," Lyra reported, her voice steadier now. Mara gave a single nod. "On my mark." The Dominion ships began to spread out, their formation loose in the turbulent currents. "Perfect." "Mark." In the depths of the corona, hidden shapes came alive. Pulses of blue-white energy flared as drones fired their EMP charges into the heart of the pursuing fleet. Shields collapsed. Engines sputtered. Dominion cruisers staggered as systems shorted and went dark. "Now!" Mara barked. The Resolute and her escorts wheeled around, weapons blazing. Torpedoes streaked through the chaos, tearing into crippled hulls. Frigates darted like wolves, flanking disabled ships and striking at exposed reactor cores. The Corona's turbulence scattered return fire, turning the enemy's superior numbers into confused wreckage. On the bridge, cheers erupted as the first Dominion cruiser erupted in a storm of shrapnel and flame. Lyra grinned, wide-eyed. "Direct hit. They're scattering." Rios slammed a fist against the railing, exhilaration breaking through his usual stoicism. "We've got them on their heels." Mara didn't smile, but her voice carried a quiet pride. "Keep pressing. Make them remember this day." Another cruiser detonated, fragments spiraling into the star's gravity. Mara could almost imagine Korvath's fury echoing across the void. Let him rage. Let him know humanity would not break. As the last wave of Dominion ships limped out of the corona, the Resolute turned back toward open space. Damage reports flooded in, but so did a feeling Mara hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Lyra looked up from her console, eyes bright. Admiral, we did it. We helped. Mara studied the wreckage on the tactical display, then the faces of her crew. They were bruised, bloodied, and alive. This was only the first strike, she said softly. But it's enough to tell them, we don't kneel. Allies and shadows. The Resolute drifted deep within the Veil Nebula, its hull patched with scavenged alloy and streaked with burn marks from the last engagement. Outside the viewport, swirling gas clouds turned the stars into smudged embers. The silence of this hiding place was almost holy, until the argument started again. We can't keep running, Commander Rios said, slamming his hand against the edge of the star map. Our fuel reserves are down to 30%. The supply freighters are running on fumes. One more engagement like that, and we're finished. Mara Veyra sat in the captain's chair, hands steepled beneath her chin. Around her, the bridge crew avoided eye contact, as if afraid their resolve would crumble if they met one another's gaze. She listened, patient, until Rios finished. We'll find a way, Mara said at last. Rios shook his head. With respect, Admiral, a way to what? To die slower. Mara rose and moved to the viewport. Beyond it, a skeletal freighter drifted past, welding crews floating like ghosts around its battered hull. She spoke without turning, to remind the galaxy what it means to stand. Ensign Lyra's voice cut through the tension. Admiral, unknown contact emerging from the nebula, bearing 048, relative velocity minimal. Every officer snapped back to attention. Mara strode to the tactical station. Put on screen. The static resolved into a shadow gliding through the mist, sleek, narrow, and unmistakably alien. Weapons arrays hummed to life on the Resolute, but Mara raised a hand. Hold fire. Identifying no Dominion signatures, Lyra murmured. Hull markings. Elathi design. A collective murmur rippled across the bridge. The Elathi were rumored slaves of the Dominion, an aquatic species forced into servitude generations ago. Few had ever seen them free. The incoming ship hailed them, its transmission rough and distorted. A figure appeared in the projection, tall, thin, with pale, silver skin and eyes like pools of mercury. He spoke in halting standard. Human vessel, we seek parley. Mara's brows knitted. Open a secure channel. Within minutes, the Elathi envoy was aboard the Resolute, flanked by 2 guards bearing strange, organic-looking weapons. He bowed his elongated head. I am Kelshar of the Elathi remnant. We heard your words, Admiral. Bow first. His voice carried awe. Your defiance has reached worlds you do not know. Mara studied him carefully. And you've risked Dominion retaliation to find us. What? Kelshar's gill-like structures fluttered, a sign of hesitation. Because you fight. And because we know the Dominion secrets. Their fleets, their fuel lines, their staging grounds. Help us free our people, and we will help you strike. Rios crossed his arms. How do we know this isn't a trap? Kelshar met his gaze evenly. You don't. But if you do nothing, you will die. If you fight with us, you might live, and more will rise. Mara looked to her crew. Some seemed intrigued, others wary. She felt the weight of their hope pressing on her shoulders. She thought of Earth again, of burning cities, and knew the answer before the question finished forming. We'll fight, she said. Hours later, Mara stood with Rios and Kelshar over a map of a Dominion supply depot hidden in a nearby asteroid cluster. Kelshar traced long fingers over its glowing outline. A single strike here cripples 3 surrounding sectors. Rios frowned. It's heavily guarded. We barely survived last time. Mara's voice was firm. Then we won't attack head-on. We infiltrate. Take what we need and run before they realize we were there. Kelshar nodded approvingly. Elathi Shadowcraft can guide you through their sensor net. Preparations began immediately. Mara briefed her strike teams, small groups of human marines and Elathi operatives who moved like whispers in the dark. They launched hours later in cloaked shuttles, gliding through asteroid shadows toward the Dominion depot. Inside the depot, everything reeked of tyranny. Rows of shackled alien laborers, Dominion overseers barking orders, fuel convoys crawling in and out. Mara moved with her team through maintenance ducts, heart pounding as they planted charges and tapped into fuel lines. The Elathi worked with elegant precision, bypassing security with tools grown from bioengineered coral. An alarm blared. "We're exposed." Lyra's voice crackled over comms. "Dominion patrol incoming." "Fall back," Mara ordered, but she didn't leave without a final act of defiance. She turned to Kelshar. "The prisoners. Can we free them?" Kelshar's silver eyes gleamed. "Yes." Minutes later, the depot erupted in chaos as cells burst open and laborers flooded the corridors. Dominion guards fell beneath a tide of rage. Mara's team raced back to their shuttle under covering fire, carrying stolen fuel canisters and half a dozen liberated slaves. The Resolute jumped back into the nebula, battered but alive. On the bridge, cheers broke out as the new allies joined their ranks. Mara watched from the viewport as Elathi ships formed up alongside her fleet. Rios stepped beside her. "You know Korvath will come for us harder now." Mara's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Let him. He's not the only one with allies anymore." Through the swirling mists of the nebula, the fleet began to move, human and Elathi together, a spark of rebellion burning in the dark. And the message spread further still. Humanity does not kneel. Bow first. The void beyond Dominion Prime shimmered with weapons fire. Hundreds of ships crisscrossed the dark like angry constellations, their engines blazing, their hulls scarred. At the heart of the chaos, the Resolute carved a path through debris fields, her flanks shielded by Elathi cruisers and repurposed Dominion gunboats piloted by newly freed allies. Admiral Mara Veyra stood at the command platform, voice steady despite the storm around her. "Status. Shields at 60%. Lyra called, fingers flying over her console. "But their main fleet is regrouping on our starboard flank." Rios studied the tactical map, his jaw tight. "If they form a pincer, we're boxed in." Mara's eyes narrowed as she studied the icon pulsing in the center of the Dominion formation, a massive, spear-shaped flagship. General Korvath was here. She could almost feel his presence, cold and furious, watching her defy him one last time. "Open a channel," Mara ordered. A heartbeat later, Korvath's image filled the projection, larger than life. His 6 eyes glared, and his voice seethed with hatred. "You are outnumbered. Your defiance ends here. Kneel, human, and I may spare a handful of your kind." Mara stepped forward, meeting his gaze as calmly as if she stood before him in person. Around her, the bridge hushed. Every crew member leaned in, breath held. "You came all this way," Mara said, her tone quiet but sharp. "I thought you'd have learned by now." Korvath's lipless snarl split wide. "You cannot win." Mara let the silence stretch, then spoke the words that had become a rallying cry across dozens of systems. "Bow first." The transmission cut before Korvath could reply. On the bridge, murmurs turned to fierce smiles. Rios grinned despite himself. "Well, guess that answers that." Mara's voice hardened. "All units, prepare for final strike." The battle ignited like a supernova. Human frigates darted through enemy ranks, targeting weapons arrays and engine cores. Elathi shadowcraft disrupted Dominion targeting grids, scattering decoy signals like shimmering bait. Explosions rolled across the void, bright enough to rival the nearby sun. "Frigate Delta is down," Lyra reported, but the breach opened a corridor straight to their flagship. "Take us in," Mara said. Her heart pounded, but her hands were steady as she gripped the railing. "Ready all boarding parties." The Resolute roared forward, weaving through wreckage and streams of plasma fire. Dominion escorts converged, but Elathi cruisers intercepted them, sacrificing their hulls to buy the humans a path. Mara felt every loss like a weight in her chest, but she did not falter. The enemy flagship loomed ahead, a blade of black steel wreathed in defensive turrets. Mara's team launched in drop pods, their approach masked by electromagnetic noise. Moments later, boots slammed onto alien alloy, and firefights erupted in the corridors of the Dominion's most feared warship. Mara led from the front, rifle in hand, helmet sealed. Her team cut through stun guards, moving with lethal purpose. The ship shook under external bombardment, lights flickering, smoke curling in the narrow halls. Ahead, a massive door sealed itself with a hiss. Rios planted a charge, stepping back as it blew inward. Beyond lay the command chamber, and within it, General Korvath himself. He rose from his throne-like chair, towering over them, blade claws extending. His voice rumbled through the chamber. "You should have knelt, human." Mara stepped forward, rifle lowering. Her faceplate retracted, revealing eyes that burned with defiance. "After you," she said softly. They clashed, Korvath's claws sparking against her rifle's reinforced bayonet. He was stronger, faster, but Mara moved with the desperation of a species that refused extinction. Sparks flew, blood splattered, and still she pressed forward. "Admiral," Rio shouted, tossing her a small detonator. She caught it mid-lunge, slammed it against the control dais, and twisted. "This ends now." The chamber filled with a rising whine as charges armed. Korvath lunged, but Mara ducked, driving her blade into his chest. His scream shook the walls. She yanked the blade free and leapt back, dragging Rios with her as the charges erupted. The flagship shuddered, explosions rippling through its core. Mara and her team sprinted for the escape pods, diving in as fire consumed the command chamber. Seconds later, the Dominion flagship tore itself apart in a blinding wave of light. Back aboard the Resolute, cheers erupted as the flagship's wreckage scattered across the void. Dominion formations faltered. Ships broke ranks, retreating or surrendering outright. Across the system, enslaved crews rose against their overseers, emboldened by the sight. Mara removed her helmet, hair damp with sweat and blood, and stepped onto the bridge. Rios met her gaze, eyes bright with disbelief. "It's over," he said. "No," Mara replied, staring at the liberated fleet forming beside them. Elathi, humans, and others yet unknown. "It's just the beginning." The comms lit up with transmissions from freed worlds, voices repeating the phrase that had become legend. "Humans do not kneel." Mara allowed herself a rare smile as the Resolute turned toward the stars. The war was far from finished, but a new future had been born, one built not on surrender, but on defiance. And somewhere, in the echo of every broadcast, her words endured. "Bow first."